Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is singer-songwriter and podcast host of the Music Is My Mantra podcast, Courtney McKenna. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to reverse the roles here. I was a guest on your show recently,
Yes.
just
Yes.
released actually. I got to listen to it yesterday. Absolutely loved being on it and loved listening back to it. I forgot how fun the
Cool.
conversation really was. So, looking forward to getting to
Yeah.
know more about you today, and I can shut the
Awesome.
heck up.
You know, I like to listen to my guests. It's the stories that they have, it's all part of what makes us who we are, right? So it's great. I had a really fun time with you on my show. And so listeners of the Scene Projects, go check it out. Um, Definitely just interesting similarities and also just you're a wild card at heart. I love it.
Well, and today we get to hear about your story. So I guess up to you how far back you want to go, but go ahead and give us a little backstory, and then we can talk about all the stuff you're up to these days.
All right. How far back? I was born in 1988. I am a marketer as well. So let's see. I'm from California originally. I grew up in Arizona, and my dad was in California and Hawaii, so I spent a lot of time between the three different states. I've always loved music. I grew up singing in church, and I played clarinet for 8 years, through school and marching band, which I hated, but it was also a really fun time looking back, and there were some good things. Yeah, I went out to school, studied marketing and business, and I thought I wanted to work in fashion. I didn't really know a lot of musicians, who were doing music for a career. My grandpa was an entrepreneur in the car industry, started the business in the 50s, family business. And so I wanted to do entrepreneurship and marketing. And I graduated early because I had got really burnt out at school. So I was like, get me out of here. Moved to New York City. I was there for about a decade. And really, when I got to New York, that's when I was like, wow, cool, I can start my life now. I feel like, what do I want to do? And like I said, I thought I wanted to work in fashion. So I was in college doing a lot of sewing and creating things for people. And I got to New York and I had an internship, working for free for a Metro card, just hustling. And I started dating a musician. And then I moved into a place that was called the Rad Pad, and it was full of musicians. And I like to say that's where I got my rock and roll education. It was like a storefront that was, illegally built out into a four-bedroom apartment. And we had a basement, so we had a practice space there, and we would throw shows and have parties and stuff. And yeah, that's really New York is where I I taught myself guitar. I started, songwriting. After 4 years, I finally got the courage to play my songs out. I was playing with other bands and singing with other groups and stuff. And it's just been an evolution ever since then. I moved back to California in 2019, and I have had multiple lineups of my band since then. This is probably the sixth lineup. With COVID and everything, it's just been a really wild roller coaster. So I'm kind of coming back from uh, actually Sunday will be my first full band show in a year and a half with, you know, all new songs and stuff. So that feels good. And I used to play out like every single weekend doing cover gigs and that sort of thing. And I've always had my marketing business as well. So I've kind of had the best of both worlds there. Um, yeah, it's been a journey on both fronts. It's challenging, I think, to be an artist and to figure out how you're going to survive financially. And so I feel really grateful that I've always had that background, but I always also had a lot of doubt in myself because I didn't immediately go into like a corporate marketing job. I've always worked for these, for the most part. I've had some some bigger roles in the past like 6 years, but it was a lot of grassroots. Like I worked to start a community art space in Bushwick in Brooklyn. Um, did a lot of different gigs in lots of different industries. So, yeah.
Have you always had your own kind of marketing firm then? You're kind of just doing your own thing, a lot of social media stuff, or what's kind of the basis of your marketing company?
Yeah, I'd say social media has always been something that I've had my pulse on. Initially when I just got out of school, it was like Twitter and Facebook just became public. It was like, just for college students when it first came out. So it's changed so much. And there was also resistance in the marketing industry towards social media because people were still really entrenched in like traditional marketing practices, even though the internet was like blowing things up and changing things so quickly. And so I think it's fascinating because it connects us in a way that no other time period has had this opportunity. But of course, there's also like the side effects of it, overwhelm. And if you use it in the wrong way, it can be like pretty toxic. So, um, yeah, I feel like I've sort of had to fight that a little bit, like saying, hey, this is the future. Like, still to this day, I have clients that aren't fully sold on it because they're like, but how can you measure it? And I'm like, well, everything is connected to clicks and links. And, it's actually like, it's really can be a super powerful tool. And I think it's an endless learning process because it is constantly changing. So, yeah.
Well, and we spoke about it a little bit when I was on your show as well, but both of us being 80s babies,
Hmm.
we kind of grew up in the old analog world
Yeah.
and have experienced this massive change as young adults and now as kind of, the OGs of a lot of these scenes now
Yeah.
and have watched it change, right? When
Yeah.
social media kind of first started, oh, what is this? And have watched the last decade of the toxicity that you talked about. And I think there's an awakening now where we realize what it is, we realize the tools, kind of the methods are pretty set in. It's no longer really a new space, right? It's pretty well known how the spaces work. The advertising models that are there, how to use it, but there's still so many people that are just not investing in that side at
Yeah.
all. And it's, same thing for me is, especially out here in South Dakota, there's a lot of businesses that don't even have a Facebook page and don't have a lot of things that you're like, wow, you are now like 2 decades behind, right? Like
Yeah.
we need to get you first up to speed, and then we can talk about actually implementing some of these things.
Well, it can be super overwhelming. It's just like there's so much being thrown at you every time you open the app, you know, and it feels like, oh, is my message really gonna come through? And now everything is being flooded with AI, so there's like a lot of controversy around that, controversy, I don't know. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I think it's like a reflection of our culture and it's a tool like anything else, if you don't have like healthy boundaries around your how you spend your time, then like it could go south pretty quickly. So, yeah.
I'm fortunate that I found podcasting,
Yeah.
and now that I have a purpose when I'm online, I
Hmm.
don't do a lot of doom scrolling. Not that I ever did, but especially with Facebook groups, it became a
Yeah.
lot easier to network. I was able, Facebook started segmenting people into these things, so
Yeah.
finding groups that are active and have active members and one that I've used that's been nothing but a blessing to me was a podcasters on Facebook group, 50, 60,000 people strong now.
Cool.
And you don't even have to know everyone. I dipped in, was like, hey, looking for guests for my show. Next thing you know, the calendar is full. And it's like, oh, wow, I only need to dip into this a few times a year,
Yeah.
really into this pool of people. But we
Awesome.
talked a lot about community
Hmm.
on your show as well, and what the scene projects are, what your podcast is as well. Music is my mantra,
Hmm.
is even if the community that you're building doesn't have a huge listenership, this
Yes.
culture and this community of artists that you're interviewing,
Yeah.
right? And no, I'm not saying that it doesn't have the listenership, but the fact that you're
I've got
able to
big
have
goals.
this,
Let's see. Yeah.
well, you have this vessel now, and I know it because I've done 200 episodes. I've done
Hmm.
episodes with at least 150 of those people that I've never met before, right?
Hmm.
That weren't
Hmm.
part of my group. So I've been
Yeah.
able to expand my network. Can you talk about the value of a podcast to not just a musician, but really to any business out there that is looking to grow a community around them?
Yeah. Well, I think it's not even like it's so much broader than just a podcast, right? Like the thing about the podcast is that it gives you a platform to connect with people. And that's really like I think the foundation of it. So like when you were talking about like, before the internet, right? So to promote shows in New York before the internet, you would like just put flyers everywhere and you get people to like go around and hand out flyers, come to my show, that sort of thing. Now it's like, think about it by connecting in the digital space, you can connect with so many more people. And so I think that's the power of podcasting. But at the next level up is like when you're building a community, it's incredible how if you go into it with no expectations, like you're giving a platform to somebody else, you're giving an opportunity to share their voice, to share their music, and the reaping of that reward isn't immediate, but it always comes back to you. So, like, for example, during COVID times when everybody was like afraid to go outside and lockdown, I had basically just moved to Los Angeles and I was pissed. I was not happy to be locked inside. I was like, I live at the beach. Like, I'm gonna go out to the beach. Like, there's no way I'm gonna get sick from going to see the water. Like, but they were like fining people $1,000, and I just felt like f this, like, and so I started hosting these outdoor concerts because we have a balcony in our street here, and my roommates, they all worked in like events and marketing as well. So like we all moved in together about a month before lockdowns, and then suddenly we all had no jobs. And so I was like, look, you can't, I don't want to just like stop living, and I had plans to start touring and stuff. I had shows lined up to go back in New York City, and that was like literally the week of lockdown. I had to cancel everything. And so we just like invited the neighbors over and we're like, hey, we have this space. You can social distance, like be safe, obviously, but like let's get together and let's just invite our friends to play on this outdoor space. And so we did that for a year and a half. And it was really just out of like, we've got time to organize it. And, we have this space and it's outside and like, why not? So from that series, like we did one concert every month for, yeah, about a year and a half. And I met so many incredible artists, and like they invited me to go play at their showcases later on, and still like the connections that I've met through that time, which I had no expectations when I was building that. I was just like, let's just do something, like, you know. And so I think that's kind of how I've been approaching the podcast too. It's like I'm just going to invite people on, and then I know that down the road, like it's going to build, and it might not be how I imagine it to be building, like maybe the podcast won't be the big thing that I monetize and like go all in on, but like I know that the opportunities will come back in some form, in some way. And I think that's just how, the more that you can like give to your community in that way, it it just makes everything better.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
becomes a form of service.
Yeah.
And for me, especially, and in the entertainment business, just at all, right? That it's a very me centric thing, right? It's very ego
Yeah.
driven and very look at me, look at me, look at me. And both of us being marketers makes you a networker, makes you a people person that you want to see these other people succeed.
Hmm.
I don't have
Yeah.
exactly the same experience of living with all of these artists in the same house, but I've always been surrounded by artists. And
Yeah.
when I was finally able to kind of turn that around and go, hey, this is what I have, and it's for you. Right.
Hmm.
This is like, yes, I'm here, but it's really a platform that I'm building to have you come on and tell my friends about yourself. Because I
Yeah.
can share your music with them online, but until they kind of meet you, maybe there's not that same investment. So it's been a
Yeah.
great thing for me, and just having been on your show, and now that I'm subscribed, I'm sure I'll be listening to a lot more episodes. But it seems like a lot of the same thing that you're like, look, I already know a lot of people that would be interested in coming on. I'm always
Hmm.
going to meet more,
Yeah.
and now I have this beautiful show that I can share, and you just
Hmm.
get to have the most interesting conversations and meet people. And then yeah,
Yeah.
you never know the ramifications of each and every single episode.
Yeah.
Every episode becomes a seed, and you don't know which ones are going to grow and bear fruit or not. As long as it's still fun, then
Hmm.
we're just going to keep on planting.
Yeah. 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 And so I love it. I started out my podcast with a couple, like three, the first 3 months were pretty much all solo episodes. And I didn't even realize like how badly I needed that just to talk about my story, my music, like all of the knowledge that I have when it comes to wellness and that whole side of everything. Um, so now I'm like, great. I feel way more confident because I've shared my story. And now I'm just focused on like amplifying other stories of music and wellness and that intersection that I feel like is really overlooked.
Definitely. So you said you got your first full band show coming up in a year and a half. You just have to be absolutely thrilled to finally get back out there and to play some music.
Yeah.
LA's been through a lot, not just the last 5 years, obviously the Palisades fire, and so much has happened there, riots all the time. And what's the pulse of the LA music scene right now?
You know, I I'm laughing. I'm not trying to be insensitive to everything that's happened, but the media likes to amplify the crazy extremes. So, like the day of the last riot slash protest, I was going down to a friend's show and I drove through downtown and I saw like a helicopter, which happens every day. Like, I didn't see anything. I obviously like I have a very different story than other people. Some people like their works got raided and like the things are happening, but I just I don't feel like it's really had a negative impact on obviously there's pros and cons and highs and lows to everything, right? It's like if anything, I think that it does feel like there's a creative rebirth happening here in Los Angeles, and maybe that's just from my perspective, but I felt like I've been sort of disconnected, like I said, from the last year and a half, and I've done some solo shows and that sort of thing, but just the couple of past few months, I've stepped out here and there and like just have been completely embraced by my peers. And I just went to another sold out show last night for a friend of mine, V Torres, and she has a new album coming out. And like a couple weeks before that, I went to another sold out show, and it feels like a warm hug. Like I love it. I can't speak for all of Los Angeles. I think what's happening here in the South Bay is like very unique. Um, but one of the shows that I went to on Thursday last week was at the space that is at first and foremost a mental health space where people can go and get like free counseling. And they opened a music venue. And then the music venue has been so popular that they had to move the counseling to a separate room or separate building, actually. And now they do shows and it's like all volunteer. Um, it's called Scribble, in case anyone's curious. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting, cool things starting out. And, I think Scribble has been around for a couple of years now. It's not like it's brand new, but um, I think because of the times that, we've had to endure, things are starting to flourish
We
ever
see a
so
lot of
slightly.
we see a lot of the same thing kind of happening in Minnesota, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Minnesota, Los Angeles, New York, these are places that had a much different experience than rural South Dakota did. So my
Hmm.
own lived experience for 2020 to 20 has been I've had the best time I've ever had in my life, right? We never stopped playing gigs and our businesses have been flourishing. We didn't experience lockdowns at all.
Hmm.
We hardly wore a mask, right? Like just a totally different experience, right? And I
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
forget that, except when I talk to, a lot of people here and a lot of guests that we have on the show from Minneapolis and the Minnesota area, that is
Hmm.
just a much different experience.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing what was once that vibrant, beautiful music scene kind of come back to life. Because what happened during that time was that a lot of these venues closed. A lot of the
Hmm.
promoters stopped promoting. They were bankrupted, right? So
Yeah.
you lost a lot of the people that were drivers of the scene. And now what
Yeah.
we see coming back is that there's
It's
a lot
different.
more of
It's rebuilding differently. Yeah.
the independent, right? The
Hmm.
independent people, you have new venue owners, you have new venues with different ideas of what it is. It's not
Hmm.
all about, the Viper rooms and the whiskey, like those things are kind of
I love the
relics.
Viper Room.
Well, yeah, I mean, great rooms, right? Great rooms,
Uh,
but they're almost relics in today's music scene because all these alternative spaces have been opened and turned into music venues because they already have the community. Right. And I feel like that's kind of the
yeah.
missing part is that now you have venues that are built around a community and you just have a space rather than like the hot spot. I don't think people are going out, definitely not like they were 20 years ago.
Mm.
It's just a different scene overall. People are healthier. The drinking and drugging culture, I feel like, is continuing to move further and further away. And
Hmm.
it's really about the music, independent artists, songwriters. Do you feel like the LA music scene? I mean, Chris, you'd moved there in 19, so right as it plummeted. But do you feel like it is more independent artists rather than just kind of the top down industry of what it was kind of traditionally?
Um, well, one of the reasons, like when I was living in New York, I always kept my eye out on the LA music scene because it's like where the Recording Academy is, like the headquarters. It's always been sort of the heart of music, right? I mean, obviously Nashville and New York are huge too, but um, I think the indie musician thing has been building, and they had a really thriving scene before COVID here, and then now the artists that I used to follow are like, oh, the scene's washed up. Like, what is the scene, And I've heard that from a few different artists that are really into like the whole LA Hollywood thing. And I think to your point, it's like things are shifting in that sense where like if you can't plug into a community or have your own that you've been building and cultivating, that's where maybe you feel left out or something. Like have never had a chance to ask these artists in particular, like what why do you feel like you need to move somewhere else, but I think maybe it's a little bit of, if I were to guess, like just wishing that there was more being poured into them and more inspiration, I guess. But I've always been the type of person where like I have no lack of inspiration coming to me. Like I I've never really cared to follow trends. Like I've always been interested in trends and like watching them, observing them, but like I've never really been the type of person where um I necessarily like have to have the water bottle that everybody else has, or like the whatever, I've always liked to make my own clothes. Like I like to do something just a little different, you know. Um, and I think maybe that's more of what we're seeing. Plus, industry is like dead, honestly. Like you can't make money from streaming. Like you can barely make money from touring because most of the traditional venues have these buy-ins with the larger, Live Nation or that sort of thing. So it's like even if you're a small band and you get paid like $200 a night to open for an act on tour, let's say, then you might still have to give like a solid cut of your merch to the venue because of the rules. Like it's just not that you can't make money touring, but for a while things shifted from like you used to be able to sell CDs, and then it was like, well, now streaming killed that, but you can still make money touring, and now it's so expensive to tour. I feel like, unless you're doing like a house shows thing and you are plugging into that community, friends of friends that are craving live music and something real, it's like there is this, I think, uprising of artists that are realizing that, and people are leaving Spotify. And well, even you said that you didn't want to be on Spotify with your music.
And honestly, I nobody has even heard that yet, right?
Yeah,
And I've already seen two or three of my friends that are like, I'm done. Well, because AI is
yeah,
causing their songs to get flagged anyway, and then they're getting taken down because of bot streams, which they didn't pay for or do in the first place. So, what's the
so
point?
weird.
If it's not
It's so
working
weird.
for you, why invest any time and energy into that and seeing people kind of reversing that trend? And I think it's our generation that have
Yeah,
lived through it. We grew up, we were fed a dream. Hey, you got to go to New York, you got to go to LA, you
yeah,
have to be in these things, and you got to get seen by industry, and then they're going to make you famous. Well,
yeah,
nobody's around to make you famous anymore, right? Like
yeah,
that's just not, unless you're lucky enough to somehow crack the code and to get on Joe Rogan's show, right? Or something like that. There is no really big bump that comes from really anything. There's a lot of small ones. There's a
well, you
lot
just
of
don't know.
couple
You just don't
fans,
know
right?
what's gonna pop off. Like it's like the whole trending things with going viral. Like you never know what people are gonna resonate with. Like I have a friend, Jed, and he's in this band Feed the Kitty, and he and my other friend Jack went to Vegas, and it was Jed's birthday, and he got like extra security checked, going through the line. So Jack's there like making a video of it just on the spot and singing happy birthday to him while he's getting checked by security. And it's got like 150,000 views in like overnight. And it's like that has nothing to do with their music, but that's like what he's going viral for. And it's brought in some new followers, and like it's just weird. Like it's a funny time. And I think the if you're going to be an artist and truly speak your truth through music, through your craft, and really like treat it as a craft and not just like a hobby and I'll make music with AI or something, it's like there's still this, I think, people who are really truly invested in the artistry of music. Like you have to just make your own path in every single sense of it, like through the sound, through the marketing and connections, and you never know. Like you still might only be heard by like 15 people on a monthly basis, but it's like at some point something could break through and everything could change in a 24 hours.
Well, and I think you listen to a lot of stories of people who have gone viral.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. It was a
Yeah.
piece of throwaway content that was sitting around, and they're like, oh crap, I got to post something today. And you reach
Yeah.
into the file and you throw it out there, and next thing you know, it's got a couple million views, and you're like,
Yeah.
how did that happen, right?
That's for sure like the biggest thing that I've really been trying to practice, and also that I've seen and keep coming back to, is that consistency, whether it's consistency through putting content out and just learning what people respond to or not. Consistency, like doing vocal warm-ups, like, just taking care of my instrument. Consistency, like once a week, giving myself the space to write and like work on my songs, um, you know, it's a it's a long game. Like if you're an artist, you really have to put all the desire for like financial gain or anything like that aside, because I think in this day and age, like you said, you're not just going to get discovered, and you really have to do some soul searching and commit to what it is that you want to build.
And being conscious of it, I
Yeah.
think that is something that has occurred to me over the course of the last 2 years. And not that I didn't have a lot of, fans around me, people that have known me most of my life know that I sing and play music and are doing this, but I never really settled into like, well, yeah, but all you people are part of this web of my life. And
Mm,
if I had something and allowed you to support me, I wouldn't have to go and work and to do those things. And I think a struggle for a lot of artists is the marketing business side of it. You have to have
mm,
something to offer. You have to have, whether it's merch or it's cameos or whatever it is, you have to have
yeah.
something that you're offering to them all the time in
Yeah.
order for them to support you, to get that. You have to have that ask out there consistently. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of artists just aren't used to that kind of that transactional approach, but
Yeah.
without it, nobody's going to know that you need it, right? I think all
Right.
of us kind of sit back and are just like, "Oh yeah, they're doing fine." Right? "Oh,
Yeah.
they're doing great." And it's like, "No, I could be starving tomorrow
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
need this."
I've had people I've made this reel in different variations multiple times now, but it always hits. And it's basically like, you know, people think that I'm out there playing shows and getting living full time off of my music because I'm out there every night doing something. But like in reality, I'm making like $100 a week from music, you know? And or like I don't know, it varies. It fluctuates. It's not always the case. But compared to like what I make from my marketing clients, it's totally it's not, but that's like what I love and that's what I want to show. So I've been trying to be more intentional about showing like what I do when I'm not making music because there's so much that I do that I'm when I'm not making music. But back to your point, it's like I think when artists feel uncomfortable to ask for what they need, it's very common, and I think we are being pushed to think of our craft as more of a business in that way, you know? And that can be really intimidated for people because if they haven't had any experience or exposure to entrepreneurship or people that have built something and done it in a way with integrity, then I think a lot of people get turned off and scared immediately because they're like, I'm not a business owner, I'm an artist. But it's like, oh, to be an artist, you still have to be pretty savvy because even like painters or sculptors, like they have to sell their work. It's not just the music industry.
Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
50 or even 40 years ago, heck, even 30 years ago, you could do that. You could be a Kurt Cobain and like, no, I'm just going to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
But you don't have that industry isn't there for artists anymore. Art is a commodity now. It's been
Yeah.
completely oversaturated. All the artists have been taken advantage of for the last 10 years, especially.
Yeah.
And it's forced us to take it upon ourselves to change the way things are done.
Yeah.
We are out here the ones who are starving. The Spotify's of the world and some of these major labels, they're not the ones who are struggling. They were just
Yeah.
throwing money away anyway, right? Hoping for one hit. How many bands get cut every year or traditionally used to get cut? Now you don't get signed unless you've gone viral and you've
Well,
already
even
gotten a huge following.
still, if you get signed to a major label, there's like an insane stat that 80 or 90% of bands get dropped after the first year after they get signed. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but like it's alarming, you know? And I think that is just if we could just have this shift of like thinking that it's overwhelming to recognizing how empowering it is to be fully in charge of our career and destiny. Like, of course, it might feel overwhelming. It's a big responsibility, but it's like just what is one small thing I can do today to move me closer to my goal? Like just it little steps. Like it doesn't have to be hours of marketing every day, you know? Like I feel like I do every day, but that's
Yeah, I was
because I
getting
also do
same
it for
for
my
me.
job,
That's why I'm
you
laughing. I'm
know?
like,
But I'm doing it for other clients. Like even when I sit down and I'm planning my own content, I struggle. Like it's so much easier for me to do it for other people, you know? But I'm working on it. And and it's a lot of trial and error and there are a lot of good resources out there to help, you know. I know you mentioned that you found indie
indiepreneur.
yeah, I actually hadn't even heard of that, so I
Really?
looked it up. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, they're awesome. And what they have is a great course-based system, right?
Hmm.
And you know, they call theirs the buddy system, which is exactly what we're talking about,
Mm,
right? And using
yeah,
social media marketing to go find your 30%, right? Go find the
yeah,
people that like you and forget about the rest of them.
yeah.
And they've had so many people that have used their system and gone through their trainings and are living a successful career. Some of them have
That's
gone
awesome.
viral, they've gone on to international tours and things like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are just able, we all have different ideas of what success is anyway. So
Hmm.
just go find your success. For me, if I can find a way that this maintains for the next couple of decades and I just get to keep showing up at all the
Yeah.
coolest places and getting to know the coolest people in the room, well then
Hmm.
this has been a very successful career path.
Yeah. I think you definitely if you can define what success means to you, that is huge because without that, you're just going to be chasing something that somebody else told you is the thing to do, you know? So again, it's like it's coming back to that, who am I? What do I want? What are my goals? And I think it's just so common for people to not think about those things because like in school, we're taught like math instead of like what are, you know, what are ways that I can plan for my future financially? Or like, should I have a savings account? Or, you know, like basic adulting. There should be adulting 101. Yeah.
I need to sign up for that one.
It should be free.
Right, right. Well, and I think that it's definitely this generation, our generation, you know, I'm raising my kids much differently than I was
Mhm.
raised.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to pay a lot of dividends 20 years down the road. And I
Yeah.
think if both of us continue to do as much as we can, using our platforms to educate people and to put it
Mhm.
out there and support other artists, then we're going to change our worlds. We're going to change the world that's around us that we see every day. Kind of what you were
Mhm.
talking about. For me, I hear LA, and granted, LA is a lot bigger than anybody can ever give it credit for unless you
Yeah.
live there and you're aware of it.
Yeah.
But you know, outwardly we think of Los Angeles and you're thinking the things that you're seeing on the news. That's kind of the first
Mhm.
thing that come to mind. But
Mhm.
your life around the South Bay and in that small cluster, you're like, I don't really, well, I don't see that at all. That's not part of my world. And
Yeah.
I've forgotten that, right? It's been a
Yeah.
long time since I've been back in California, but I never went east of the 405, right? Like, I was on the beach and that was it. And,
Yeah.
you know, right on Highway 1, you know, and I just, it's very easy to live in a small world, even though you live in one of the biggest cities in the
Yeah.
world. And I'm sure New
Yeah.
York was the same way for you as well.
You know, New York, you just can't get away from people. Like in the best way and sometimes the worst way, you know? It's like, but more so in the best way, I think. It's like I would walk down the street and just like randomly be running into people all the time. And it was really easy just to like go somewhere and be around people and meet new friends or meet people. Like you could go out every night and just run into a whole new crowd of people. Like suddenly they're your friends and then you're just like having this whole experience for, you know, 8 hours going around. Like New York is just wild. But I think what I found when I moved here is like it's a lot more isolating because everything is spread out. Like most people don't take public transportation. We like just got a subway last year, I mean, pretty much like there's been one, but they just connected it to the airport. And what year is it? Like 2025? Like there's no other major city in the world that doesn't have public transportation, like the lack thereof, like Los Angeles. So it is very unique. You could drive like all the way down to San Diego, and except for the Air Force Base, there's just like neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. And it's kind of Orange County too. It's like there's little pockets, and everything has its own little vibe in different communities, and you spend so much time in your car, it's like your own little bubble. um but yeah, I feel like a lot healthier here because I do feel like I have more time to think, and I have more time in nature. Like I used to live by a park in Brooklyn, McCarran Park, and that was like my saving grace, honestly. Like my little patch of green space. And then yeah, I'd like go to the water by the Hudson River, and that was nice and stuff. But it's totally different there. Yeah.
I've never been to New York City. I'm sure I will visit at some point one day.
Yeah.
Probably without my wife. She has no interest in big cities and that whatsoever.
Yeah.
The culture shock is just too much, right? You talk
Mm.
about trying to find little bits of space here and there. We're surrounded by space, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing but open space around
Yeah.
me for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
leaves me vice versa, craving that connection with other people. And
Mm.
granted, the internet is great. I'm able to connect. We can talk on Zoom and have that experience, but nothing beats being in the space together, right?
Yeah.
And having that community around you. And like I said, I'm so thankful for podcasting because it's allowed me to just show up with a microphone and to kind of be, hey, I'm here
Yeah.
and this is what I do, and I just want to capture you doing what it is that you do, and kind of archiving all of this at the very least for
Hmm.
myself to have something, on the latter years of my life to look back and to have these memories and all these people that I got to meet in my life. I have a record of this now, and
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, and it's something that we kind of forget about as podcasters or as artists, that we live a charmed life and we really
Yeah.
do so much more than a regular person who has a career that they stick at for 40 years and doing the same thing with the same people, and then having little glimpses into different life, whether that's a vacation or things like that. We were really in that space pretty consistently, right? Even if you're only playing out
Yeah.
once a month.
Yeah. I think that there's like something really beautiful about that type of lifestyle where you do just have the same job and the same people and the same thing, but it, it's obviously becoming more and more rare, and I think that's why it's really it could it just doesn't happen as much anymore, right? And I think that the part of that is because there is this longing for more in life and like greater meaning, and that's maybe the connection that you're talking about is like the more that we connect with people, we get to see more sides of ourselves, and we get to experience more aspects of ourselves. And when you're just seeing the same people every single day, like it doesn't mean that you're missing out. Like you could totally be happy doing that, and you could have really deep, meaningful relationships with the people in your life and explore in that way. But I just think that it's more rare to find that. And um yeah, I do feel really lucky. I think it's one thing that I want to challenge myself with, in the future is really like deepening. Like when you're in a place where you're doing the same job, same people, that kind of lifestyle like you're talking about, I think it's not a given that you have those deep relationships, but it's like in my mind it's like a marriage, right? Like you're committed to it, and so you're going like deeper with that person and with yourself, and like with every challenge that comes up, you have more to learn and discover. And so when you're, from my experience, when you are just going, meeting new people all the time, sometimes you can miss out on that depth because you're just, doesn't mean you're not having deep conversations, but a lot of times when you're just getting to know somebody, you don't go deep right away, right? So yeah, my challenge, my goal, I guess, is to challenge myself to find that depth. Whether it's in the conversations like this or just day to day, I think that's people are, yeah, it can be scary to go there, right? So
Well, Courtney, I've taken up plenty of your time today already. Where can people go deeper with you and find out more about you?
thank you. I'm on Instagram mostly at Courtney McKenna, and you can listen to my podcast at musicismymantra.com or follow my YouTube where I have music and the podcast. And yeah, CourtneyMcKenna.rocks is my website. So if you want to learn more about my marketing or anything like that, definitely reach out. I love to help brainstorm ideas and, have conversations with people. So I'm around.
Well, I can honestly say that the 2 hours that I've got to spend with you have been two of the most interesting and fun conversations that I've got to have this year and
Thank
maybe
you.
in my life. So thank you, Courtney,
Oh,
for being on my show. And thanks
so
for being
sweet.
part of the scene.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.